Hi, I'm Shay.
And I'm Dave.
And we're on the next part of Shakubuku.
Yeah, when are those people ever going to stop talking about Shakubuku? I mean, us.
Well, as often as Nichiren talked about it, I think
Well,
we still have a long ways to
yeah,
go
and once we've converted everyone in the
in the
world,
entire world.
yeah, then we can stop.
And that's actually what it says in the Gosho.
Oh, do tell.
Well, I don't have that Gosho card.
Oh, okay.
Unless you want, I can read it off. Hold on, I'll read it off the internet here.
Oh, okay. No, that works.
Says, Shoju is to be practiced when throughout the entire country only the Lotus Sutra has spread and when there is not even a single misguided teacher expounding erroneous doctrines. But the time for Shakubuku is very different from this. It is a time when many different sutras and teachings spring up here and there like so many orchids and chrysanthemums, when the various schools command a large following and enjoy renown, when truth and error stand shoulder to shoulder, and when Mahayana and Hinayana dispute which is superior. At such a time one must set aside all other affairs and devote one's attention to rebuking slander of the correct teaching. This is the practice of Shakubuku. So he says, at such a time one must set aside all other affairs and devote one's attention to rebuking slander of the correct teaching. So
yeah,
I think that pretty much.
Yeah, that's really
strong.
good. Yeah. And if you don't understand, it's plain Japanese translated to English.
Oh, yeah, we've heard all kinds of excuses for this.
No, it's really, yeah. You got to do Shakubuku. I guess that's just the bottom line.
So I said this in the first one, and it bears repeating here. This video is about Nichiren's strong encouragement to do, I don't know if you call it encouragement, kind of insistence to do Shakubuku. And so everybody knows this is Nichiren's view. And I said in the previous video that if you read the Gosho, just one Gosho, one right after another, you're going to find Shakubuku throughout everything. I mean,
and we did this. You and I did this more than once.
And yeah. So when do you want
to? No, I was just going to say, and Nichiren Daishonin talks about doing Shakubuku in almost all of those.
Yes, he talks about it a lot. He talks about doing the need to do it, why to do it, and he does it. I mean, if you hadn't noticed, the Risho on Kokuron is just the litany of Shakubuku. I mean, he's really taking other religions to task. And I already talked about that in the previous video. So, so we always used to tell this story, and since we're on video, when sometime in 1999, I think, 2000, somewhere in there, David's mother and father gave us an SUV, and pretty nice, and they really wanted us to go to Alaska because they'd been to Alaska. So they gave us this SUV so that we would drive to Alaska and see Alaska because they thought it would be really cool. And on the way, because we had all this time, we were just driving, we chanted 3 hours a day and read the Gosho pretty much the entire time we were driving. So like all day, every day, we ate, slept, drove, and read the Gosho and
talked about it with each other.
Talked about it and chanted Daimoku, and it struck us how much it never. To me personally, it didn't dawn on me how much Shakubuku is talked about in the Gosho.
Yeah.
It is talked about a lot. It is probably the single most discussed subject in the Gosho.
Yeah.
And so that people don't notice it now that I've read the Gosho, I think, how do people not notice this?
Yeah.
It's really, really a big deal. So I think people don't notice. I want to read a few passages from the Gosho because I think especially SGI members don't really notice this stuff. And it's not taught in SGI. It's actually SGI has consciously decided not to do Shakubuku, not to teach Shakubuku. Although sometimes they do bring it up, but I know for a fact that they're philosophically against it.
Right.
We've discussed this with them.
Yes, absolutely.
So I'm just going to read a few passages so people can hear what Nichiren thought in case they never noticed it before. So this is from a conversation between a sage and an unenlightened man. He says, if a practitioner of Buddhism should fail to chastise evil persons who slander the law, but give himself up entirely to meditation and contemplation, not attempting to distinguish between correct and incorrect doctrines, or provisional and true teachings, but rather pretending to be a model of compassion, then such a person will fall into the evil paths along with the other doers of evil. Now, a person who fails to correct the true word, Nembutsu, Zen, and precepts adherents who are slanderers of the correct teaching and instead pretends to be a model of compassion will meet just such a fate as this. So he's saying, if you pretend, oh, I'm not going to refute people because I'm a kind, compassionate person and I don't do that sort of thing. That's for mean people.
Yeah.
You're gonna be complicit in what they teach, and you're going to suffer the same consequences they do. So this is from letter from Sato. In the same way, the renegade disciples say, though the priest Nichiren is our teacher, he is too forceful. We will spread the Lotus Sutra in a more peaceful way. Sounds a little bit familiar there. In so asserting they are being as ridiculous as fireflies laughing at the sun and moon, an anthill belittling Mount Hua, wells and brooks despising the river and the ocean, or a magpie mocking a phoenix. So obviously there were disciples in his day, his own disciples, saying like what SGI members do and stuff, is, that's too forceful, Nichiren. I mean, they're actually saying this today, to this day. That's too forceful. We're going to spread the Lotus Sutra. We're going to spread Buddhism in a more peaceful way. And he says, he knows about this and says, yeah, it's basically not right. I mean, he's heard this argument before, in other words, and he still disagrees. That's kind of my point there. It's not like it never dawned on him that there was another way to go about it. And this is from Encouragement to a Sick Person. Although few people slander the Lotus Sutra with actual words of abuse, there are none who accept it. Some appear to accept the sutra, but their faith in it is not as deep as their faith in the Nembutsu or other teachings. And even those with profound faith do not reproach the enemies of the Lotus Sutra. However great good causes one may make, or even if one reads and copies the entirety of the Lotus Sutra 1,000 or 10,000 times, that might be like equivalent to doing Gongyo every day, or attains the way of perceiving 3,000 realms in a single moment of life. If one fails to denounce the enemies of the Lotus Sutra, it will be impossible to attain the way. And I'm going to read that again. If one fails to denounce the enemies of the Lotus Sutra, it will be impossible to attain the way.
Yes.
So you can't attain enlightenment unless you do Shakubuku.
There you go.
That's what it says right here. Right? And
in other writings too, but
if you doubt Nichiren or you doubt the Gosho, please go back to our first video where we make rational arguments for why this actually is true. We attempt to be rational. Some people might contest that. We find ourselves to be quite rational.
Absolutely.
And there's another point about this Gosho quote that I want to point out that people may not notice. Is he says, their faith in it is not as deep as their faith in the Nembutsu or other teachings. And I think that Nembutsu, I think that this is still going on today, that a lot of people who actually are against Shakubuku are against it because their faith in Buddhism, their faith in Christianity, or their previous beliefs supposedly, are so strong that their faith in Buddhism does not overpower their belief in Christianity. It's just so ingrained in them. And it's not that they're against so much religious debate, but they're having a hard time dealing with the fact that we're refuting long-held, cherished beliefs of their own and their families and everyone they've ever known in all of society. And they're having difficulty getting through this. And I think, like we said in our previous video, you have to Shakubuku yourself first.
Yes.
It's very important to get through this and to understand why we say this is the best teaching. It's not just dogma. It's not just because Nichiren said so. None of us would subscribe to that because we're not from families that taught us that way. We weren't indoctrinated with this. We believe it for rational reasons.
Right.
So, look at what those rational reasons are. Be open. Don't hold to your own egotistical views. And I would say that even when we're doing Shakubuku the other way, this is one of the reasons Shakubuku is so important, is you come up against a Christian or someone who's actually smart and an atheist. I don't know where we find these smart people, but sometimes you come across someone who's actually really smart and good at this. And you start talking to them about Buddhism, and they ask you questions that might cause doubts in your mind about Buddhism rather than the other way around, and rather than being a jerk about it. It helps. It actually helps you to figure out answers to their questions, and to develop a deeper understanding of Buddhism so that you can face the real world and you can be intellectually honest and you can be rational and you can have intelligent conversations.
And it supercharges your life condition to do that. This is life on the line kind of Buddhist practice where, what? You want me to talk to my husband or wife or children or aunts or mother or father or boss about this?
Yeah.
You decide for yourself and prepare yourself to do it. And, it really helps you understand more clearly why you believe what you believe.
Right.
And if you don't get to that, you're not going to be very effective shakubuku others. So,
right. And also teaching helps you to learn.
Yeah,
which I think
absolutely
feeds into your point.
It does.
And so when you talk to other people, you have to kind of know what you're talking about. You got to get it down,
right?
So that you can verbalize what you're thinking and not just hold to, maybe distorted views that haven't been contested or challenged. Your views need to be challenged, and so you can become a better Buddhist.
Yeah.
And the other thing I want to point out about this, about Nembutsu, it's in the quote, is I don't know if people notice, but Nembutsu is it's the philosophical equivalent of Christianity today.
Right.
So in that time, I think Nembutsu has changed over the years to be more like Nichiren Buddhism.
Well, they've stolen Nichiren.
They've stolen some things from Nichiren Buddhism, and they're a little bit better. But in his day and age, their belief was that if you pray to Amida Buddha, you're going to be reborn in the Western Pure Land. And so that's very similar to modern Christianity.
Right.
So, you can, he was kind of dealing with almost the same thing in his society that we're dealing with today. So we can use that as an example. And one other point I wanted to make, and this was right here with the other quote, I want to quote it, it says, "But the men of the Tendai school who do not refute misleading teachings are all great enemies of the people. As Chongan has noted, one who rids the offender of evil is acting as his parent." So these people who were at the Tendai school also believed in the Lotus Sutra and practiced the Lotus Sutra. That's where Nichiren's school derived from, was Tendai. And it's very close. But they didn't do Shakubuku. And he thinks that that's a major problem in their school. He brings it up a couple times in the Gosho. So he thinks even if you embrace the Lotus Sutra, which they did, you're still not practicing correctly if you don't refute other erroneous doctrines and beliefs.
Exactly.
So, anything else?
Yeah, we're going to talk about this, again and again, I'm pretty sure.
It's probably going to, because it's so controversial, we get so many debates about it. People who don't believe in debating love to debate about whether we should be debating. So it's kind of ironic. This is the one thing we
It's all the more important that you, watching this, like our videos, share them on your page.
Oh, please. Yes.
And,
it really helps.
If you even agree a little bit with us. or are totally convinced by our rock solid arguments.
Of course, why
Either
wouldn't
one.
you be?
Or
Why wouldn't
generous.
you be?
Maybe you're feeling generous. Like us.
But
And
yeah,
share it on your own wall. Thanks.
yeah, thanks.